Hey all, welcome in today's video we're going to revisit our first ever project that we made. It was the YouTube subscriber counter, and at the end of that video I promise that I'm going to revisit this video because I found at that time a really cool LED matrix. It was individual addressable LEDs. So let's go and start with the video. Cue the intro. Welcome back. So while doing the first project, the YouTube subscriber counter, I encountered this matrix. It's an 8x32 matrix, so 256 individual addressable LEDs, and this PCB is flexible, which is really cool. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. And while encountering this matrix and thinking about how to use it, I also encountered an open source project called Awtrix. And of course, everything is going to be linked in the description below. Awtrix allows you to send automation and information via an API. You can use any automation app like Node-RED or N88 to send anything basically for this display. So we basically we wrote code for it and we made it work with almost every social media that you can think of, but you can do much more. For example, we also did live temperature and load for your GPU on your computer and also your CPU. And basically the sky is the limit. It's just a display and you can show whatever you want. So let's go to the computer, let's design everything, and then we'll come back and start with the assembly process. So let's take a look at all the parts we need. First thing, we're going to need the actual LED matrix. We're going to need our custom PCB that we're going to build right now, but a little disclaimer, you don't have to use the actual PCB. The PCB is going to make it really easy because we have a lot of wiring, but if you want to do it without the PCB, it's very doable, and I'm going to put on the screen while we get to soldering everything, I'm going to put two different wire diagrams, once for the PCB and once without the PCB. So we need that. We need a power switch, 3 touch buttons, a temperature and humidity sensor, and we need a mix of about 25 M3x4 thread inserts and a mix of 25 screws M3x8 and M3x5. One thing parts that we are missing here, and we're going to need it for the PCB assembly, is an ESP32. And of course, the 3D printed parts. That's basically all we need. And of course, tools-wise, we need a soldering iron, and we'll need some wires and maybe heat shrink and stuff like that. So first thing first, let's start with assembling the PCB. So let's go do that. So before we continue with assembling the actual PCB, I forgot to say that I will be selling those PCB assembled. So we're gonna have more information about it at the end of the video. So no worries, if you guys want to build it with the PCB, it's going to be very cheap. So let's continue. I have my jig here and my stencil. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to push the PCB all the way in and align the PCB with the stencil. Now, I have all the parts here ready for me, and it's a very simple PCB. I have my soldering paste, so I'm just going to grab a little bit of it and just smear it next to the assembly in here. And I have just a scrap piece of the stencil, and all I'm going to do is just smear it through the stencil into the PCB. And after doing that, I'm going to put everything aside. Carefully, I'm going to lift the stencil and push the PCB out. And if we've done everything correctly, we're going to have perfectly placed soldering paste. So now all we have to do is start placing all the components. So let's move that. So after placing all the SMD component, we're going to reflow it. Now I do have a soldering plate, but it's homemade and it's janky and there's a lot of exposed live wires, and I know that if I show it in YouTube, you guys are going to lose your mind. So we're going to do it off camera. So now when the PCB is all assembled and looking really nice, all we have to do is go to the computer and install the software. Now this PCB is going to be available at my store. If you guys want to build it and support me, it will give me a little bit of a kickback to continue doing all of these projects. Some more information going to be at the end of the video, so let's go and install the software. Okay, so now we are going to install the software on the PCB, on the ESP32, and also do some programming and some other stuff that needed to make everything work. Now, my portion of the assembly is already ready, and I just want to make sure you guys know something. When you want to burn the software, if the touch sensors are already connected to the PCB, the ESP will get into an endless boot. So make sure that for the software installation portion, those sensors are not connected, disconnected. Okay, so let's continue. We're going to connect our board, the USB to the computer, and we're going to the Awtrix software page. We'll be greeted with this page, and of course link is going to be below. All you have to do is press flasher in here, and it will take you into the automatic web flasher. So all you have to do is press connect, choose the COM port for our ESP, and the best way to do it, if you don't know what's the actual COM port, is just disconnect the ESP and reconnect it while watching that window, and you see that COM10 appeared and disappeared, so I'm going to press connect to it. Now it is connected to the board. I'm going to press install Awtrix 3, and I'm going to mark erase device. That's also always good to make sure there is not going to be any conflicts with other software if you use that ESP for anything else. So now all we have to do is press install and wait for about 5 minutes for everything to install. So we'll be back. And now when the installation is complete, we're going to go press next. We can also go to the logs and console, and we're going to see that here the ESP already booted. I'm just going to press reset to make sure I can see the boot process. And yeah, so it is booting and AP mode is on. Now this is very important. So the ESP is going to emit an access point. You're going to connect to it with your computer or phone. It's going to open a page, and there you're going to insert your Wi-Fi credentials. We're going to try and do it in my computer. I'm pretty sure I won't be able to do it, but let's try and do it. So after pressing the scan Wi-Fi network, sometimes you need to reset the ESP for it to work. It's not 100% working all the time, but you see I had to reset the ESP, press scan Wi-Fi networks, press on my network, and then add the password. So let's do that. And after that, we're going to press connect, and the ESP is going to reset and try to approach the network. So now while you are turning on the matrix, for the first time, it's kind of blinding the camera, but it looks a little bit like gibberish. There's nothing makes sense. So we have to fix it. While loading the IP we saw on the flasher, we're greeting with this page now, and we can see that it's connected to Wi-Fi, and of course it wouldn't work if it wasn't connected to Wi-Fi. But what we have to do is go to Files, and we're going to greet with this page. We're going to make a new file called dev.json, and we're going to press Make File. Now that's the file here. Now from the documentation you see something that you need to copy paste, so we're going to paste it here. It's going to change the way that the matrix is, the data of the matrix is calibrated in the ESP, and then temperature offset -3 degrees Celsius. So while making everything, I saw that the temperature sensor inside of the case get about 3 degrees Celsius up than the actual environment, because it's still inside of a case, and the LED matrix and everything affects the temperature inside. Now, this is calibrated to whatever temperature sensor I have laying around here, and it doesn't mean that it's accurate. So if you guys think that you need to change the calibration of that sensor, that it shows maybe higher or lower temperature than what it really is, all you have to do is to go again to this file and just change this number. Don't forget to press save, and then we can go back to the first window. And I think you can press on network, and then you have reset ESP. We're gonna press that, and it will reset the ESP. And now, well, it turns on. We can clearly see words. We can clearly see the IP that it displays, and we know that everything now works. So that is great. Next thing is, if you guys are using an MQTT, if you have Home Assistant or if you have any MQTT broker, you can add all the information here, and that way you'll be able to send commands through an MQTT and also for Home Assistant. Another cool thing here is we do have a live view that can show us what the actual matrix shows, and that way it's easier to debug it or even do stuff without the matrix on completely. Okay, next thing we need to do, if we'll go to the live view, we can see that the time is not the correct time. So if you go to the time here, you're going to have an NTP server, and then you're going to have the time zone. Now, if you press this link here, you can go and find all of your time zones, so and the correct way to write them. So I'm going to look for Los Angeles, and that's what I need to write there to actually get the correct time zone. So we're going to go there, we're going to go back here, we're going to replace this with whatever we found in that link, and then we're going to do save configuration and then reset ESP. Now the ESP is going to reset again, and it's going to show us the IP and everything on the screen. So we're going to take a few seconds, and while that happens, we'll be able to see, we'll be able to refresh this page and see that it's now 9:41 a.m. So that is good. Now you can choose between, now it's on degrees Celsius, and the way we can change it is actually go to the menu. So press the middle button, it will take us to the menu, and then I can go on the right button until we go to temperature. Press double click, and it should, sometimes it's a little bit finicky, but press double click, it will take us to the next window, and then we can press one of the arrows to change it from Fahrenheit to Celsius. It happens really quick, you have to do really quick to do it. But now, if I'll go back to the main menu, it should show me Fahrenheit. There we go. So now basically everything is ready to go, and everything is programmed. Next thing we need to do is actually program N8N to send all the automations and all the social media information to our controller. Now, battery, as you guys see, there is a page for battery. The best way to do most of this stuff is just download the app on the phone. So you can download the app on the phone, it will connect to it, and all you have to do is just go to the battery menu, and you'll see it. You just press off on the battery menu, and then you can restart the ESP again. And while everything loads, you're not going to see the battery menu anymore. So yeah, download the app from the app stores. It's really easy, and it helps you guys to download a lot of stuff. Now, next thing, let's download NA8. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to install Docker Desktop. Now, I'm not going to do a step-by-step on this entire process because it might make the video like 3 hours long. So if you guys want to see everything step-by-step, and if you want me to show you guys how to make every single app for every single social media platform, let me know in the comment below. I think we can make a dedicated video on that. But for that to happen, I need to see you guys engage with me, like give me some likes on the video. If we get to 50 likes on the videos, on that video, I'm going to make another video, part 2, that I'm going to do all the software step by step for everything. But for now, it's going to be in the document, so let's do it. After going to searching in Google for install Docker for desktop, we can press on that, download it, and install it. It's very simple. I'm going to be greeted with this page. You don't have to sign in if you want to sign in. As you guys see right now, just for the demonstration, I am not signed in. So here you're going to go to search. You're going to press N8N, enter, and then you're going to see that the first image has more than 100 million downloads. That's it. That's the correct one. We're going to press run. We have additional settings here if you want. So I'm going to press 0 here. That will give it the default port. Let's give it name. I'm going to call it N882 because this is just for demonstrations. And you can also give it a volume so you know where it's going to actually save all the data. I don't really care. And environment variables, we don't touch it right now. So press run, and hopefully everything will work as it should. It will start spinning the container. It should take it should be really quick. When everything is done, you're going to see like a link here. You should press on it, and we are greeted with N8N. So here, all you have to do is make yourself a username and password with your email address, with your name, last name, and any password you want to have here. And that will give you access to N8N. We don't need to do that. And there we go. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to press create flow, and that's what's going to be really easy. You're going to press on the 3 dots here and import from file. Now you'll be able to download all of these JSONs I created for you, and all you have to do is just press double click on the file and it will pop everything for you. Every automation, every workflow will have to change stuff to actually fit our social media. So for example, this is TikTok. Now TikTok has some problems with TikTok API. I couldn't make an API for it, they won't allow us. So we're doing an HTML request, so we can only refresh it every 4 hours. So what we have to do is double click on fetch data. And then here you see hashtag and strudel and change me. So here you have to put your actual username on TikTok. So for me, it's going to be the printing pilot. We're going to press test app, and if everything will work, we're going to get HTML data. Great. Next thing we need to do is go to send to clock and remove app. Send to clock will have to change our IP, and we know from the beginning of everything our IP is 192.168.1.198. So we're going to change that here, and we're going to change that at remove app. It's very important to do it with both of them, otherwise the app won't remove and you will have multiple pages. The last thing you need to do is go down here, and down here you have icon and the number of the icon. We're going to copy that icon, and that will tell the to Awtrix what icon to display next to the data. But first we'll need to download that icon, and we only have to do it once. So we're going to go again to the Awtrix page. We're going to go to icons, and here we're going to paste the icon ID. We can press preview, to see how it looks and press download. Now the icon is saved. So now all we have to do is press test app and we see everything spins in green. So now if we go to live view and move in our between our apps, we can see the TikTok and the amount of followers I have. So that works. Now let's try something a little bit different. It's going to be, let's just change the name here so we know what it is. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually try to use an app with an API, and every flow that I made is a little bit different. That's why if you guys want to see me doing everything step by step for all the apps, because there's a lot of social medias and we can also add stuff for your request, make sure to like this video. If we get to 50 likes on that video, I am going to actually make a full video step by step. So we're going to create a new flow and we are going to press import file, and now we're going to choose YouTube. Now YouTube has a little bit different because we are using the API. We can actually call the API multiple times. So here I'm calling it every 10 seconds because I'm changing the picture, the apps in my Awtrix clock, Awtrix display every 10 seconds. So we don't need to call it every second, but every 10 seconds is more than enough. So pressing on fetch data, we see that here we have ID and key. And if you guys remember in the first video, and you're gonna go and follow that instructions, we made an app inside of the Google developer console. So here we need to put your ID, so that will be the user ID, and then the key, that's going to be the secret key that you got from the developer console. So let's do that really quick. But now we'll have to change also the addresses in here like we did in the first one. So address here is going to change to 198 again, and we're going to change the address here for the clock address or the Awtrix address, and also at the exit app. Now, I did two different apps here. It sends information twice. So while we're doing that API, we're going to get two information. One of them is the amount of subscribers, and the second is the amount of views. Now, if you don't want to see all of that information, all you have to do is just delete one of these lines. So the first one, we know, I can say the name here, it's YouTube views. So let's say I don't want the YouTube views to show. Just delete it and it won't trigger. So now what we have to do is test the workflow, then go to the live view and circle our apps. This is the first app we made, the TikTok one, and this is the YouTube one, but we forgot to do the icon. So let's do that really quick. We're gonna press double click here. We're gonna go down to the icon. We're gonna copy it. We're gonna go to Awtrix, press the icon, preview. That's the YouTube icon. We're gonna press download and it saved it. So now what we have to do is just run the test workflow again. Go to live view, circle through our apps, and then we have my subscriber count and YouTube icon. So basically all you have to do is load the apps and change the stuff in these apps. I'm going to try to make as much document as I can, but it takes time. I will try to make documents for all the current apps, so you guys can basically just go and follow the instruction and do it instead of watching me do it. But it's fairly easy, and it's basically that it. So now we finished with installing the software. We fixed some problem with the way that the matrix is displayed. We also corrected the temperature sensor problem that we had with the -3 degrees Celsius. And we showed you guys how to install N8N and doing some basic apps to send live information to your social media screen here in front of you. So let's go back and now and finish with the assembly process. So next thing we're going to do is assemble the entire enclosure. So we have all the 3D printed parts here, including the 3D printed diffuser. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to insert all the thread inserts into them. Now most of them I'm going to do with my press, but some of the thread inserts that you press them into the body here, it's too long for my press, so I'm going to do it by hand. Another thing I did here is I gave it just a very light sand in here because those two faces needs to meet together, just to make sure there is no like bears or elephant foot here that will cause it not to connect correctly. So next thing we need to do is we have 3 thread inserts in one half of the bodies. So on the right body part, main body part, we have 3 thread inserts that mounted like that vertically, and that will help us assemble those two shells part together. So let's do that really quick. And before we are going to connect those two assemblies, we're going to push the 2 thread inserts here. Those 2 thread inserts are going to hold our PCB in place. So after pressing those 2 thread inserts, I'm also pressing another 2 thread inserts into the LED connector. And also I'm going to press 8 thread inserts per half of the LED diffuser. So we're going to have 16 in total thread inserts into those 2 halves combined of the diffuser. So now we're going to connect the 2 halves together. We'll need 3 M3x8 screws. And it might be a little bit awkward threading them in because of the way they are, but if you do it really quickly, if you do it really carefully, it should be pretty easy. So I'm going to start with 1 screw here, and I'm not going to completely tighten it. I'm just going to screw it in a little bit, and then I'm going to go with this screw here, and again very slowly I'm going to screw it in. Now it could be that you might have to replace the to change the actual screwdriver to like an Allen key, especially at this one, but for now it looks really good. I always make sure when I screw everything in they are actually flush, and those 2 halves are actually flush. It's very important for the looks. Now on those 2 parts, we don't really have screw connecting them, but we have enough pressures from those 3 screws. If you want to add a little bit of CA glue there, if it will make you feel more comfortable, you can do it. But for now, for us, just those 3 screws is more than enough for this enclosure. So this screw is just going to be a little bit problematic. So sometimes changing into an actual Allen key be better. Sorry for your ears, guys. So now 2 halves are screwed in. I didn't use any glue here, and as you can see it's fairly strong, but again you guys can add some CA glue to be more feel more comfortable. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to screw in the PCB into the case. So a few words about this PCB. We have some cool stuff here. So first of all, we have some polarity protection. So if for some reason you guys mix the plus and minus, you're not gonna blow up anything in here. We also have a diode here on the power that comes out of the ESP. So if you are plugging this to your computer to install software on it, you're not going to light up everything and basically overload your USB. So when you connect the USB to install the software, the only thing that's going to turn on is the ESP, not the matrix or anything else. But don't you ever connect both of them, okay? That's not how you're supposed to do it. We also have a fuse here, and about, I think, around 8 amp, it's going to pop and protect the circuit board. That LED matrix is very strong. At full brightness and full all white, it can pull almost 15 amps. But it's too bright. You're not going to be full white on all 256 LEDs. I never pushed it more than 10% brightness. That's how bright it is. And also, this enclosure is printed out of PLA. If you want to press to push it above 50%, it's going to emit a lot of heat and it's going to melt the PLA. So if you guys for some reason wants to go really high power, you can, but just make sure to print the enclosure out of ASA or PETG or something like that, or ABS, otherwise you're gonna melt everything. So, and then you can press it in, make it flush. The power here port should be flush with the enclosure, and that will also make all the other screw holes to be aligned. So we're gonna take two M3x5 screws and just connect everything in place. And I'm going to give it, you don't need to over tighten it because you can actually break the board. Just slightly tighten it. And now we have the PCB connected into the enclosure. What we're going to do next is we're going to start measuring the wires, cut them, and resolder everything into the components. And that's going to be probably the most time-consuming process, but after you have all the wiring harnesses basically ready, it will be just screw them in and it will be very fast. Let's start measuring all the wires. The temperature sensor is going to poke through this hole here, and it's going to be sitting in this portion of the enclosure, and I try to put it as far away from all the electronics so they won't affect it. And then you have three touch sensors, and they're going to be pressed here, and we do have a place for them in the enclosure. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is some holes there. So what we're going to do is on the PCB, everything is actually labeled very easily. So you can see that those two 3-pin switches, terminal connector says switch right, left, and middle. So we know that switch middle is going to come from here, and it goes to go all the way up here and all the way to the middle. So I'm measuring the cable, and I know this is about right, and I cut it, and this is going to be middle. And then I'm going to do the same thing with switch right, and I'm going to move the cable all the way to the right portion of the switch and cut it. And then we're going to take switch left and do the same thing, move the cable up and into position and cut it. So we have those three cables ready. Last one that we're going to do is from here, and it's going to be the sensor, the temperature sensor, and the temperature sensor needs 4 wires, so we'll have to cut the same thing twice. So we measure it here, and we cut it, and then we're going to remeasure another time here, and then we're going to cut it again, and we're going to use only one string of wire out of those 3-wire assembly. So I'm just going to separate one of them, and that's it. So those are most of the wires. The last wire that we're going to need is going to be the power switch, and the power switch is going to be pressed from here like that, but we're not going to press it now. We're going to first of all solder everything. So what the power switch needs is 2 wires, and these 2 wires are going to go from the power switch here all the way, and I'm going to try to make it as tight as we can all the way here. So I'm going to cut that thing here, and we also only need 2 wires. So we're going to separate them, and I'm going to put that aside. We don't need it right now. So after having all the wires needed, the left, middle, right switches and the temperature sensor, I'm going to move that aside, and I'm going to start working on soldering all the wires. So after soldering all the wires, we're now going to finish with the assembly of the body. So again, temperature sensor, left, right, center touch sensor, and the power button.
Hey guys, Editing Tom here. So I added the two wire diagrams. The left one is the wire diagram with the PCB, and the right one is the wire diagram that connects directly to the ESP32. So you can pause the video and follow it, and don't worry if you can't see it clearly and it's too small. We're going to have all the files and documentation so you can open the picture and download it so it could be full quality. Let's continue.
So we're going to start with pressing the power button in. So we're going to just fish these wires in, and all we have to do is just press it in and it will snap into place. Nice, satisfying click. We're going to move these wires like that here, and we're going to connect them into what terminal that says on-off switch. With the LED matrix, you have this connector, and that connector is going to connect to what says here matrix. And polarity here is important, so make sure that red goes to VCC, white goes to ground, and green goes to data. Now we're going to start with the touch buttons. So we're going to start with switch right, and here the polarity is also important. So make sure when you solder everything on both sides that VCC is always red, and it goes VCC to VCC. Data is always green, and it goes data to data. Ground is always white, and it will be ground and ground on both ends. Now, what we have to do is just press it in, and it's kind of hard to show it in camera, and I try. My wife will help me. Can they see it? So that thing here is just going to be pressed in place. So very, very carefully take any, like a screwdriver or something, and make sure that you're not pressing on any components on the PCB board, and just press it in like that, and it should stay in place. It should be friction fit. But while you press on the PCB, please make sure you are not pressing on actual component, because you will break them.
And now we are going to do the same thing with the two other touch sensors, and you can also refer to the diagram to make sure you connect everything correctly.
Now the last thing going to be this temperature sensor, and the main component here, that's the sensor, and that's what's going to poke through the hole here. Now we're going to hot glue it in place and make sure while you wire it in, and we're going to do it here, that we're going to make VCC, that we make sure that VCC is going to be in the correct place. And then we have SDA, SCL, and ground. So I'm going to just wire it. Top of glue on each side to make sure it is fully secured. So for now, we are done with all the wiring. As you see, the temperature sensor in here, and I'm going to also add some hot glue over the three touch sensors, and our main PCB is all wired. So what we have next to do is to finish with the LED matrix and connect everything together and boot it for the first time. So now what we have to do is we're going to take the LED matrix, and we're going to try to align it with the holes in the diffuser. Now, because it's going to be aligned, the squares are going to also include those capacitors in here. It's not going to be perfectly aligned, but it's going to be good enough. So if you have like a gap, try to move it to include the capacitor, and then that gap should become smaller, and that's basically it. Now, since it's a flex PCB, it's still a little bit all over the place, but now while we're starting to add our support, we're slowly going to start to see everything coming together. So I'm going to start putting the support first. So look in here, upside down on the actual face of the diffuser. You see that these lines are perfectly aligned. So we know we can move towards the next portion, and this is very, very strong. It's one piece now. We do always have a crease in the middle because it printed it apart, but it will look nice. Okay, so now all we have to do is connect the PCB to the, connect the matrix to the PCB, and hopefully we'll be able to push it in, all the way in. And with that all in, we'll need 6 3x8 screws. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And slowly we're going to start to screw them in. And that's it. So now we are done with the assembly. Everything is flat and in place. And now also the assembly is very strong. So what we're going to do next is we're going to clean everything in here, and let's show you guys how it works and talk about my final thoughts. So we're done with building everything. So let's take a look about what we build, and let's talk about some of the features of the actual enclosure. So first of all, we have just the enclosure and the screen, and we have on top here 3 touch buttons. So the middle one will send you to menu, and then those are back and forth, so you can skip to the next app or look at the previous app. When you go to the setting, you can actually change stuff from like temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit and brightness and stuff like that. But you can also do all of that from the Android and Apple app. So you can go download the app. I think it's free. Yeah, it's free, and you can change all of this stuff in the app. You can actually change basically anything you want, from the way that the time and date is showing and the way stuff displayed. You can download icons, and yes, so it's very versatile. So what you guys see right now, I have chose to show all of my social media. We do have power button in the back. We have the temperature humidity sensor. We have it's like an Easter egg in here. I did the vents here, the shape of my logo, which I think is pretty cool. And that's basically it. Right now, it is connected with a janky battery, so I can show you guys how it works. But I chose not to go with a battery in it, not compared to the first version of our YouTube subscriber counter, because this one has much more, the LEDs are consuming much more power, and it's the same amount of LEDs, but here, it's triple amount of LEDs per LED because it's RGB and not just one LED. So it's 256 LEDs times 3 LEDs at each and every one of them. So making it run on the battery, it's going to not work, as it should. It will probably run for about 2 hours on a battery, so it doesn't really make sense. So it's going to be plugged in with a power supply, but as you guys can see, this is only 10% of brightness. And right now I have studio lights on me. This entire place is lit up, and it's still, you can see it clearly. So yeah, don't forget that it does emit a lot of heat. So if you want to go above 50%, the diffuser, the PLA diffuser it will deform. So if you want to do that for some reason, just print it in a different material. So let's take a look at some pictures and B-roll, and we'll come back in a second. Okay guys, I hope you like this project. It took us so long to do it, from sourcing the electronics to designing the PCB. This assembly is very complex with all of these angles in it and some other features that we talked about, and some of them that we just don't have time to talk about it because it's going to be a 2 hours long video. Software wise, I showed you guys how to do the software, and I also showed you how to do one app. If you guys want to see a video of me doing the entire apps and programming all of them on N88, let me know in the comments below, and I might do a part 2 for this video just on N8N, so we can do a step-by-step on the software. But everything is going to be written in the documentations of this project, so it's basically the same. Every single app is basically the same. You just have to change some things as a username and stuff like that we're talking about the social media apps. So everything is going to be in the description below. All the information, all the open code, open source 3D printing part, and the PCB. And the best way, guys, to support me is to go to my store and order that PCB if you want to build it. It will make the project much easier for you to assemble, and it gives us a little bit of a kickback so we can go and continue doing all of this stuff, because it costs a lot of money designing everything, testing it, ordering the electronics and the PCBs. So yeah, hope you like this video. Make sure to like the button, and if you're not subscribing, do your thing. I'm watching it live. I can see you guys subscribing. So I'm Tom, I'm the Printing Pilot, and we'll see you in the next video.